Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Nick Taylor and today we'll be talking about sports nutrition, more specifically oxidative stress, sports recovery and plant-based solutions. These topics are now a big business. Sports nutrition is the fastest growing consumer health segment, hitting a valuation of $17 billion in 2019. The growth is set to continue in the coming years. By 2023, the market is forecast to be worth almost $24 billion. In Europe, the UK, Germany and Italy are the top markets. I'm joined today by two experts in the field. Dr. Mark Saramito, a sports physician and specialist in micronutrition in sport, will share his long experience. After that, Marion Sabi, project manager at Bionov Robote, will introduce MeloRun, a melon juice concentrate designed to counteract oxidative stress in sports people. Just before we get started, I have some housekeeping items to go over. If you have any questions for our panel, please type them in the Q&A box below and hit the submit button. We will answer as many questions as time allows. Okay, with that cleared up, I would like to hand off to our first speaker. Dr. Saramito, please take it away.
Okay, Dr. Mark Saramito, very nice to meet you today. Very happy to share experiences and funny sports stories. I am a young, old sports doctor practicing for 25 years long with many different teams and high-level athletes. Was doctor from Olympic team from France in 1996 in Atlanta, doctor from French bicyclist team, take care about top 10 tennis players for 5 last years like Raonic or Berdych or Medvedev, take care about famous transoceanic sailors, many Olympic champions for swimming, for athletic and so on, and it will be a good moment to get together. Oxidative stress is a biological noise involved in free radical production. Free radicals are chemical substances damaging cells, membrane, and DNA. We have many options to get high level of free radicals: pollution, pesticides, ray and X-ray, heavy metal, infection, drugs and alcohol, and also sport. Body has several defensive lines to fight against oxidative stress. 3 defensive lines. The first defensive line is endogenous defensive line with enzyme like SOD, like GPX, like catalase, and their cofactors like zinc, copper, or selenium. The second defensive line is exogenous defensive line coming from food. These are like scavengers, we tell, like vitamin A, vitamin E, polyphenols, and flavonoids. The third defensive line concerns DNA repairing system. We have to get a good balance with between free radical production and antioxidant skills. Problems come when this balance is disrupted. At human beings, we may have some disease like cancer in this situation, like diabetes, like neurological disease, like cardiovascular disease. We will see the specificity of a sport with 2 kinds of exercise. We have aerobic exercise and anaerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise means O2 input and consumption are balanced. It concerns long-lasting exercise, but with low intensity, with heart beating between 65% and 80% of the maximum. Anaerobic exercise is a situation where O2 consumption and the flow is disrupted, and it produces lactic acid attacking cells. You don't need to be high-level athletes to get free radicals making exercise. Even if you're a world champion or a small athlete running only twice a week, you may have oxidant attack in sport. Finish for me.
Thank you, Dr. Saramito. Now, Marion, could you share a few words about yourself, Robertet, and Melorun?
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to participate to this webinar today and to have the opportunity to discuss with you about sports nutrition. A few words to introduce myself. My name is Melon SOD. I am a R&D project manager in Bionov Robertet in charge of designing and managing preclinical and clinical study on our natural ingredient. Bionov is a company which was born in the late 80s and produced a melon juice concentrate with high antioxidant capacities. Our ingredient is produced with a non-GMO variety of melon, which is the strict property of Bionov. The raw material is cultivated in France in dedicated fields and transformed by simple yet pretty sophisticated concentration that only use physical steps with no solvent. This ingredient has been studied for the last 30 years in order to understand not only its efficacy spectrum, but also its mechanism of action. Bionov joined the Robertet Group 4 years ago now to extend both the offer and the expertise of the Health and Beauty division. Today, we mainly discuss about Melorun, which is our sports ingredient, and I must say that I am all the more pleased as I have been passionate about sports since I was young.
Thank you, Marion. Dr. Saramito, as a sports physician, how familiar are you with food supplementation? Is that something that is used a lot in athletes and something that you personally advise?
At first, I have to say, in sports nutrition, things are like in fashion, change every 5 years. For example, 30 years ago was a big tennis champion, Ivan Lendl, telling I win all tournaments because I eat a lot of pasta. So for a couple of years, everybody was eating pasta and pasta and pasta. And now a new tennis champion, Djokovic, he tell I win tournaments because I don't eat any more pasta. I have a food intolerance. So you have to see things change regularly. We can say sports medicine learned about anti-aging since these old times because goals are very similar. For example, in protecting cells in anti-aging and sports medicine is important to have energetic replacement, to have hormonal management, to improve neurotransmitters. Immunity is the same thing for all people and for sportsmen. So we learn a lot about this. And now it's much more easy because in a time we had no tools, no biological tools to adapt supplementation specifically to athletes. At the moment, things change and we know who needs supplements at what moment he needs supplement and for how long time. The name is chronobiology. We learn a lot with chronobiology. For example, amino acid is very efficient to take after effort. Omega-3 fatty acid is important to take at the night because omega-3 fatty acids control level of inflammation, and inflammation is at the best in the night. So taking in the evening omega-3 will be much more efficient. Another example with growth hormones, you can take some amino acid called glutamine, which stimulates growth hormones. And the best moment in the day is to take late in the evening because maximum synthesis of growth hormone stay in the night. Now about antioxidant, we learned a lot of things for the last 20 years. For example, to give zinc an athlete which has no deficiency may create toxicity for ACE or neurological toxicity. To give selenium an athlete has no deficiency may stimulate excessively thyroid. Vitamin A and A we know now we have to avoid at people getting breast cancer or lungs cancer. About antioxidant, and especially our Melon SOD, we know giving too long time antioxidant treatment may disturb cellular messaging. Antioxidant system has to get back message, cells are suffering, and if too long time, this messaging disappear. And we know now it's much more efficient to give discontinuous treatment with any kind of oxidant. But I have to say, SOD melon, at my opinion, doesn't create that negative action feedback on cellular antioxidant messaging. Also, I like to use this Melon SOD because there's no toxic side effects. And at least I know if you have a low SOD activity and give SOD, it works. This is unusual and very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mark. And then Marion, you designed and managed the Melon Run trials, but also are passionate about outdoor sports. Can you tell us more about this ingredient?
Thanks, Nick, for the question. So Melon Run is a new sports ingredient which is based on our sustainable melon juice concentrate. The main active we concentrate is called SOD, superoxide dismutase, and it is a powerful antioxidant that it is in fact naturally produced by both plants and animal kingdom. But the ingredient also contains a cocktail of bioactive ingredients of melon pulp, which all work in synergy and are responsible for the high antioxidant efficacy. To protect the bioactivity of the ingredient, the melon concentrate is encapsulated with a range of patented coatings developed to suite of various applications. Melon has been developed to specifically address oxidative stress in the context of physical activity. Between a high content in encapsulated SOD and already demonstrated antioxidant and inflammatory capacity, for us it foreshadows an interesting potential in the field of sport nutrition. That is something that we assess in several trials. A human clinical trial on a population of recreational users, a consumer study on a professional team of volleyball, and several preclinical trials which give us the opportunity to study various aspects of sport nutrition. The efficacy has been demonstrated on humans from 2 months with only 40 mg per day.
Thank you, Marion. And Dr. Saramito, I know you've studied the results of those different trials. For you, which ones were of the most interest?
Yes. On this Melon SOD trial are not two interesting kind of evidences. At first, structural evidences. The first one, under a microscope, we can see less fibrosis on eccentric exercise, which is very aggressive on the muscle usually. And the second structural evidence concern diameter of muscular fibers. We change fast fibers significantly into low fibers. Low fibers has much more important mitochondrial efficiency. Then I had a note functional evidences in that study on the 3 points. First one, increasing PGC1 alpha, who works on mitochondrial improvement. It seems to be logic with these fibers transformed into long twitch fibers. Second point concern a marker inflammation called TNF alpha, means tumor necrosis factor. This produced by a kind of leukocytes or white cells called macrocytes, and produce also in the second time cytokine attacking tumors or any kind of infection. And this TNF decrease in our study. Third point concern KRL test is a basic general test for antioxidant ability, telling about time of 50% hemolysis. We have also another study with SOD Melon about horse races. Horse race are like high-level athletes, big intensity, big muscular damage usually, and we make measurement of two parameters in blood and articular liquid concerning aminoglycan, which is a marker of cartilage damage, and PGE alpha 2, marker of inflammation, and nitric oxide. These two parameters decrease in our study about race horses. So it was very demonstrative. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Marion, what is one result to remember?
I am agree with Dr. Saramito. These results are very interesting. For me, it will be one of the results of the clinical trial. We use two validated scales called Prevo and SF36 to measure the effect of our ingredient on fatigue, muscle pain, sleep troubles, and stress levels. We were able to highlight an overall increase of physical well-being and energy associated with the supplementation. What is interesting is that these results can be easily be correlated to a biomarker that we also assessed. We observe an increase in magnesium plasma level with a significant difference between our ingredient and the placebo. Magnesium is an essential mineral well known by sports people and involved in many enzymatic systems, energetic metabolism, stress response, etc. Changes in extracellular magnesium levels as observed in the placebo group is often characterized by a general fatigue and a tense state, both muscularly and nervously. We think that the protection of magnesium levels induced by the supplementation explain at least partly the effect we observe on resistance to fatigue. That is something that was additionally observed in the trial we conducted on the women professional team of volleyball. In this study, the player experienced not only an improvement of physical fitness, but also on their mental states, with a 27% decrease in sport-specific stress, a 28% decrease in mental weakness, a 41% decrease in fatigue, and finally, a 55% decrease in physical tensions.
And how do you explain such a wide range of effects?
For us, this is simply linked to the mechanism of action of the ingredient. We know, as Dr. Saramito previously explained, that oxidative stress has a large number of potential targets. In the context of physical exercise, we can observe both a rarely local induction of stress, in the muscle and the joint for instance, but also a systemic one. Our ingredient exerts its antioxidant capacity through an induction of the body-run defense globally. After injection and crossing of the stomach thanks to the coating, the ingredient interacts with receptors located on the intestinal wall. From there, it induces an increased expression of endogenous enzymes in the entire body. This explains the reason we can expect results on both physical and mental fitness. This was besides confirmed by other biomarkers that we measure in different trials. We were able to highlight a significant decrease of systemic oxidative stress and inflammation in the human clinical trial, but also a local decrease in joint and muscle in several preclinical studies.
Thank you. And Dr. Saramito, can you talk about your own experience?
Yes. I worked for a long time, for 25 years with high-level athletes. These people have safe and significant, reliable feedback with any kind of situation. So, telling about, for example, professional bicyclist preparing the Tour de France makes training with more than 1,000 kilometers a week. And for my opinion, a placebo effect doesn't exist at such people. Second example, for Olympic swimmer, have 6 hours a day training, 3 hours in the morning with weightlifting, hard weightlifting, 3 hours in the afternoon with specific training, swimming. At such athlete, a placebo effect doesn't exist. And these people, when they told me, Mark, it works, I believe them completely. Also, interesting point I have to detail for these long stories. 20 years using Melon SOD. Some important detail. At first, the first clinical pleasant effects on athletic performance and muscular rehabilitation start usually at week 2, end of the week 2. Then maximum of the clinical effects are good feedback at week number 4. If you stop supplementation at the end of the week 4, we see constantly we have 2 months additional efficiency. It's called remanence. This remanence is very interesting to create specific plan depending the sport we speak about. So I give you 4 funny example. The first one for that professional bicyclist for the Tour de France. We know the first week usually classically is flat. You don't lose too much energy for the first week, and then start strong hill climbing where you lose a lot of energy, where muscles are aggressed. So preparing SOD supplementation, I start 3 weeks before Tour de France and the first week. I know, so the 2 last weeks of Tour de France will be full efficient. Another example, which is funny, concern a very famous French sailor making race around the world alone. We know until Cape Horn is not so difficult. This is relative. It's not so difficult. But after Cape Horn, in the deep south, conditions are very hard. Very hard waves, usually 10 meters high. Very hard wind, minimum 50 knots. Very cold, a lot of stress because you have icebergs may kill your boat under 5 minutes. And so for this sailor, we start SOD 3 to 4 weeks before reaching Horn Cape. And so we knew in the deep south we are full efficient with SOD, Melon SOD. The third example concern motocross 3 times world champion. Motocross is amazing sport because you need to have a big aerobic skill, you need to be strong in muscle, to be with a good aggressivity, and you have 18 races a year. So regarding to the plan, we have sometimes 3 races on the 3 weeks. So we start SOD supplementation 3 weeks before that 3 weeks competition period. Concerning individual sport is different. We use SOD Melon for Olympic swimmer, for example. At the moment where training is very hard, usually 2 weeks before competition. We don't use for 1 day competition this SOD. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Marion, do you have anything to add on the persistence of the effects seen there?
Yes, thanks. This persistence is something that we never assessed, but it was not surprising given the mechanism of action of our ingredient. As I explained earlier, melon doesn't simply provide the body with antioxidant molecules, which are usually quickly consumed, but acts through a stimulation of the body-owned defenses. Once the defenses have been induced, they most likely keep acting a while, even after the end of the supplementation.
Thank you. And then, Dr. Saramito, could you just add a further comment on the ingredient's ability to boost the body's defense?
Could you repeat, please?
So do you have anything to add on the ability of the ingredient to boost the body's defense? So when you take traditional antioxidants, they're only of interest in case of deficiency, but this is a different ingredient.
About any kind of antioxidant like zinc, copper, selenium, you need to have deficiency. What is much more comfortable with SOD, you don't need to have SOD deficiency for activity to be efficient. You can take at any time without any negative feedback on cellular antioxidant messaging.
Thank you for that explanation. And then with that, it's actually time to turn over to the question and answer portion of today's webinar. Just to remind everyone, please feel free to type any questions you have into the Q&A box below. Our speakers would love to hear from you and answer any queries you may have. Our first question is addressed to both our speakers. Perhaps Dr. Saramito, you can give your response first. The question is, among sports people, who could have an interest in taking antioxidants?
For my opinion, to get better training, you improve performance, you improve muscular and metabolic aggressivity. Even if you are world champion marathon, you will get the same oxidative stress as a standard runner who had only 2 session training a week. So to take antioxidant is a good option for high-level athletes and for standard athletes.
And see if I can add an element. The mechanism of action of the ingredients allow is to adapt to the level of stress induced, which explains the result observed in the context of both moderate and intense physical exercise.
Yes.
Thank you both. Thank you. The next question we've had come in is for Dr. Saramito, and the question is, are antioxidant ingredients for recovery only, or do they also help with performance?
When you take antioxidant, your rehab is better. If your rehab is better, you will get longer training, you will get more intensity, and your performance level will increase. So it's completely logic for me. Usually people say maybe you don't run faster, but you run longer. But for my opinion, you will run faster and longer.
Thank you for that. And the next question we've had come in is for Marion. And the question is, would eating melon have the same effect as your ingredient?
Unfortunately, no. First of all, the concentration of SOD in our melon variety is 5 to 10 times higher than in the other variety you can buy from your supermarket. Second, and that is the most important, without coating, the SOD will simply be digested as any other protein and won't exert its antioxidant capacity. The protection of the enzymes, thanks to our patented encapsulation, allows the SOD to reach the intestine without being degraded and induce the body's defenses.
Okay.
Thank you, Marion. And then, Dr. Saramito, there have been controversies on antioxidant supplementation in exercise and pro-oxidant risk. What are your comments on that?
I told it before. We realize for the last 10 years, giving too long time antioxidant treatment may disturb seriously cellular antioxidant messaging. Antioxidant system to work need to be stimulated to have information. And if you give too long time antioxidant treatment, there is no more cellular messaging. So interest to have discontinuous treatment with antioxidant. On this point, particular point, the SOD melon is very interesting because after 1 month treatment, you have 2 months remanence. So it's much more easy to stop SOD melon because we know we have remanence for efficiency 2 additional months. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've now actually got another question for you, Dr. Saramito. And this person wants to know, have you ever assessed the efficacy of supplementation on an entire sports team?
Yes, I had a very interesting experience with a complete triathlon team, long distance triathlon team with a national level. Very interesting because 12 athletes is a good number with the same goals. Triathlon World Championship in Nice, same coach, training at the same place at the same moment. We see significant results on biological tests, especially. We look at damage on the cell's membrane is called isoprostane alpha, telling your lipid membranes over the cells is damaged, and it was very much better. And also about DNA damage with a parameter called 8-OHDG, telling DNA is damaged, and this was also much better. And clinical feedback was globally positive. No infection, no injury, no overtraining.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, for that response. And then, Marion, we've got a question here for you. How was this melon variety discovered?
In the 80s, melon producers have been working a lot of the extension of melon shelf life for the food industry. At that time, melon shelf life was really short, making commercialization pretty complicated. In the late 80s, some French melon producers discovered a new variety of cantaloupe melon that was showing an impressive stability. They decided to study this fruit and discovered that this unique long-lasting quality was due to exceptionally high content in SOD. They then wondered, since the SOD prevented the melon from aging, if it could also prevent people from aging. Bionov was then founded with the aim to produce industrially a natural melon juice concentrate rich in SOD. This fruit with amazing property becomes the start of a human, technical, and scientific adventure, which has continued ever since.
Thank you, Marion. And we're now actually at our final question for today. And this question is for you again, Dr. Saramito. And the question is, are antioxidants more adapted to aerobic or anaerobic exercises?
Sorry, could you repeat?
So we want to know, are antioxidants more adapted to aerobic or anaerobic exercise?
Right. So it's a good question, but maybe answer is not so easy. I told about aerobic and anaerobic exercise. Aerobic, we tell, is a long-lasting exercise with a low intensity between 65% and 80% of maximum heart beating, making consumption using more fat than glycogen, than glucose. And anaerobic is intense exercise between 10 seconds and 30 seconds, producing lactic acid and using glycogen, glucose concentrate. For my opinion, per minute, level of free radicals could be very similar, but with long-lasting exercise, you have improvement of the free radicals. Some high-level athletes on marathon run 120K per week, and so they have high level of free radicals. Maybe the same for football player, which have mixed aerobic and anaerobic exercise, but intensity will give also high level with free radicals.
Thank you for that response. That brings us to the end of today's webinar. If we didn't get round to your question, someone will be in touch to follow up with you and provide answers. I'd like to thank both our speakers for being with us today and to remind you that this webinar will be available to view on demand for the next 3 months. Thank you all for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day, everybody.